The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the hosts and guests as individuals, and do not necessarily reflect those of advertisers or sponsors. This show is intended as entertainment and commentary only. The producers strive for verisimilitude, but nothing said on this podcast should be taken as fact by the listener or viewer without performing due diligence.
That existence, the physical universe, is basically playful. There is no necessity for it whatsoever. It isn't going anywhere. That is to say, it doesn't have some destination that it ought to arrive at.
This is Keep Your Hat On, a show by three nerdy nobodies and one nerdy kind of somebody about nothing in particular. Keep Your Hat On is brought to you by the Narrowband Broadcast Network. NBBN, the focus is on you. By PodSquadPDX.com, painless podcasting. And by the kind support of KYHO fans everywhere through Patreon. Patreon, create on your own terms. On this episode, Andrew tells you to put your money where your mouth is. Dr. Mark talks coffee, sippy cups, and the Quran. Robert talks mental health and musical AI. And Chris talks about 3 million dominoes. Hey, don't knock until you try it. I'm still your disembodied announcer, Michael Brumage, and frankly, I'm just here for the free coffee myself. Anyway, here's the guys. Andrew, Dr. Mark, Rob, and of course, Chris.
And hello and welcome back. This is Keep Your Hat On, the show where hell even we don't know where we're going to go. I'm Andrew Scott with my good friends, Robert Anthony and Chris Vicano, and our good friend, Dr. Mark C.E. Peterson, Professor of Philosophy in the University of Wisconsin. How's everybody doing today? Woo! We've been fighting back gremlins for the last hour and a half, so apologies if this doesn't look quite the way you might be used to seeing us, because we don't know. Oh, shit, really, Mark? Really? And I'm already looking at the wrong camera, so this is going well. Anyways, how's everybody's week been so far?
Yeah, so far pretty good on this end. Not a lot to report.
No news is good news in most circumstances. Mark, how you doing?
You know, the weirdness continues. We were digging around to see how far we could go with our hat still on, and I found this thing about baby bottles, which we'll get to a little later.
Excellent.
Also, we are continuing the Tootsie Pop research. I see Ty has joined us.
Yeah. Ty, what's the flavor today?
Let's see.
You got to read the wrapper?
Yeah. It's a special flavor. I don't know.
Let's see.
It's raspberry, I think.
There are 14 different flavors.
Raspberry-ish. Well, y'all losers out there don't even have your damn fez. I got the fez. I got the fez. That should be a song by The Fix. I got the fez. Yeah, we're doing good.
Good night, folks.
We're also I am sporting the very first piece of swag that is going to be coming to an online store near you.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to torment Dr. Peterson with free coffee, because one of the things that's happened since we've been away is Ty and I did a bit of an investment.
Crazy buggers.
Yeah, well, you know, when somebody offers you 140 pounds worth of green coffee for $100,
oh dear,
you buy that shit. And it has also gotten me back to home roasting, which is something that I enjoy doing. And yeah, we're having pretty good results.
I can tell you firsthand that it makes a damn fine cup of coffee.
It is pretty nice stuff. Robert, have you
what is
actually? It is coffee.
It is.
We don't. It is. Well, here for you.
It is KYHO roast.
It is KYHO roast. It is actually.
roast.
It is Colombian coffee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's nothing.
Andrew's roast.
Well, I think we're calling it. We're going to be calling it A version of it, it's keep your hat on, and then when Robert and I get some Robustas beans, we will roast
Try
up.
to keep your hat on.
We will, right? We will.
That'll be blow your hat off.
Exactly. That's where we were going with that. But we're having some fun with that, and we are actually getting lined up. We have some checks to do, and I'm talking to the wrong goddamn camera. And again, we're doing some research because we would love to be able to give you guys some special treats. But as with anything consumable, there are hoops to be jumped through to make sure that we can send coffee out to people. But
What do you mean?
Anytime anything is consumable, anytime anything is a food product, there are rules. And I believe in rules.
There are rules, Smokey.
That's very good. But yeah, we're doing all good here in KYHO land, but we wanted to take a minute and reinforce something to our listening audience. Now, we're a baby podcast. We've been doing this now for a couple months, and we are growing. We've got people listening all over the world. Our first episode, for some reason, was very, very popular in India.
Yay!
Right?
Thank
Exactly.
you, Indians.
Namaskar. Yeah. But we would like to grow, and so many of you who are listening or watching or whatever, and I'm just going to abandon that camera up there and talk to the one here, because gremlins. Yeah. A lot of us have leaned in on you guys and said, hey, could you do us a favor, like, click, subscribe, that whole mantra that now, rings in your ears forever. And there's a reason why you constantly hear content creators saying, like, click, subscribe. Those little actions are the things that help podcasts grow. They help them get sponsorship. They help them get endorsement deals. And at times, they just help them get bigger by being bigger, by looking bigger. We would love it if we would be your bi-weekly, I can never remember which one it is. Companions.
Bi-weekly.
Is it bi-weekly? Semi-monthly, bi-weekly, yeah. Every 2 weeks or so. We'd love it if you'd come hang out with us, send us ideas for the show on on the KYHO email, which is talkback@kyhopodcast.com. Yeah, send us things you want to hear us talk about. We've all got our specialties, and we're all kind of generalists as well, and we'll riff on any topic. But when your friends who are content creators ask you to do that, it is so easy for you to help them out. Yeah, you can be standing there in the corner cheering them on, and that's great, and emotional support is fabulous, but we're asking you for, if you want to help really support us, we've got a couple of Patreon subscribers now, Patreon patrons, and we're deeply grateful for them. Hi, Cousin Michelle. But liking, clicking, and subscribing actually does something for your content creator friends right then and there, and it carries forward into the future. So if you value what we're doing even a little bit, and you're watching the YouTube video, and you're done watching the YouTube video, you got to go walk the dog or something, leave it run. Go walk the dog. It's not going to cost you any more money, except maybe about 0.4 cents. But it does huge things for your content creator friends. Playing all the way to the end of a video is a different metric. And YouTube takes that into account when your channel is growing. And we as content providers can go to a larger organization and say, yeah, we've got retention. People watch our videos, even if they don't. I was going to say there's no eyes watching you, but of course in this day and age there always are. But nobody knows or cares whether or not you actually paid attention. And I know that this sounds like a dirty trick, and it kind of is, but it's a dirty trick that helps us out. And we'd like to stay growing, and we'd like to stay in your ears /eyes/ Amazon device or whatever you're listening or watching to us on. And it would really, really help us out. And so we just wanted to encourage you, if you can help us that way, it's a freebie, and you're tossing us a bone, and we like bones. So think about it as we move forward into the future, but now let's actually move forward into the future. And Mark, you sent something to me a couple weeks ago that we're just getting around to now, and I still don't quite get it. And it has to do with sippy cups and Arabic coffee.
Yes. So I keep an eye on news of the weird, just to keep fresh. And I discovered something. It was in the Sun Times that in Dubai, in the United Arab Emirates, they've had a recent kerfuffle about a cafe called the Einstein Cafe, which serves. It's a real upscale-y kind of Starbucks.
It's not our. We have Einstein Brothers bagels.
Totally
not the same.
I'm not sure bagels would really go, in Dubai.
Yeah, come to think of it, you're probably right.
That would
just
fly
thinking,
like a rock through a window.
It's the thing, it's like, and not even Montreal bagels.
Sadness.
Which I should plug. But so they decide, as a fad, Einstein cafes across the Emirates, but also in a few of the other Gulf states, began serving, and let me get it exactly right, they serve this sort of thick, milky drink, which I think might be like bubble tea, actually, but I couldn't find out. This is also interesting. There's a weird wall here that's going to happen in a moment. Well, they sell these milkshakes with Celeriac and rice cereal for infants as formula. But, it became kind of a fad. Well, they sell it in baby bottles.
Like one would when you're feeding an infant.
As one might. Well, the fact that these were in baby bottles that had nipples on them apparently offended
somebody.
Some of the I was going to say probably some of the religious community in those countries that have a larger say in how the political system works,
and the more modest sensibilities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go with Dr. Mark's very diplomatic wording of that.
So
there's
something in the Quran about nipple play?
Not a damn thing.
Something.
Turns out I've looked, and it's not in there.
Okay.
And in fact, we should remember that in the original Islamic structures, women played a predominant and important role in the origins of Islam. Khalifa, I'm just saying, Muhammad's first wife, who was the businesswoman, made it all possible.
Exactly.
But apparently not in Dubai. And apparently not when it comes to baby bottles.
So how did this all go sideways?
Well, nipples on the streets.
So first of all, it went completely crazy. And there were lines around the block. And
because of the popularity of this formulation, is that it?
No, because of the baby bottle.
Because of the baby bottles.
By the way, I can, if we were saying this in the West, we'd all be laughing about what a marketing genius this guy was. Right. And so, and apparently Instagram literally filled with people, showing their baby bottles off, selfieing the baby bottle. And at some point, inspection teams began to burst into cafes and issue fines. And I'm going to quote the Dubai authorities here and point out that authorities had been alerted to, open quote, the negative practice and risks by social media users, which indicates an indiscriminate use of baby bottles, which not only violate local culture and traditions, but the mishandling of the bottle during the filling could also contribute to the spread of COVID-19.
Oh yeah, we're all going to get used to everything being blamed on COVID.
That.
Yeah.
So there were flooded.
We live in the West here, and we have seen enough bullshit over the last 4 years.
Yep.
Well,
we know it when we see it.
And look, and all our viewers and listeners who are our age are immediately thinking about Michael Palin busting in a black and red cardinal outfit, going, nobody expects the coffee police.
Yeah. Islam has not had its reformation yet. I think the Sunnis and the Shiites may eventually get around to that. I'll just top this off. Backlash occurred in Kuwait, Bahrain, and Oman. And there you have it. Now, so that's pretty interesting and amusing on its own right. And you find a clash of cultures where capitalism begins to clash with local culture. And by the way,
not the first time that's happened, yeah.
Or the last. And I will tell you that speaking as a historian of ideas, one of the funny parts has been to watch this happen around the world. And I have some bad news, and that's that so far, capitalism always wins.
Yeah, so far.
Always wins. And it's
is there any kind of update? Have you been able to see?
So
here's squashed and just under the rug, or
so the last I was able to find about this goes back to the middle of March, about the 17th of March.
So about a month ago.
Yeah. And this was in the Associated Press, and I thought, well, this is bizarre. So I started looking around. Every Googleable reference to this story refers back to the same Associated Press story. And I tried looking in Abu Dhabi because apparently what it was suggested was in some of the articles I read that they had actually released public statements about this. I couldn't find any. So either the AP just had a joke with us. I thought, well, maybe this is an April Fool's joke, but it was,
Were they on the Russian calendar? I mean,
on the lunar calendar for April 1st.
It's aliens.
So
it's never fucking aliens.
I did searches on Instagram. I did searches all over the damn place, and I couldn't find anything to follow this up.
Welcome to your Stonewall.
If my if our friends and relations out there in Webb's land can find anything, please leave it in the comments section below.
Yeah, or if you're listening if you're listening in the UAE or have some inside information for us, by all means, either leave it in the comments or send us a message at talkback@kyhopodcast.com. We want to get down to the bottom of this international fiasco.
Yeah, this sounds like a story. This sounds like a story that's headed for the Sinbad making a movie as a genie.
I still don't. We'll have to visit that at some point in the future. Robert, what were you saying?
I don't want to offend anybody, but I'm here to support you guys in your use of nipples.
Well, I tell you what, everybody, we're going to take a very quick break. We're going to be, I know you do. We're going to be right back. This is the Keep Your Hat On podcast. That's Dr. Mark. That's Robert. That's Chris. I'm Andy. We'll be back in just a second.
We'll be right back. Really.
And here we go. Oh, I just broke my ring. Yep.
And we're back. Keep your hat on. I just ran out of shit to say. And we're back. Welcome back to Keep Your Hat On. I'm your host, Andrew Scott, along with my co-host, Robert Anthony, my other co-host, or co-co-host, Chris Vacano, and co-co-co-host, Dr. Mark C.E. Peterson. Robert, what did you dig up this week?
Yeah.
So, you know what? I was looking around, and this, let's talk about the lost tapes of the 27 Club. It's kind of gotten some press, and it's really this interesting thing where they've taken AI, they've taken the catalog of some artists that have died, at the age of 27. The AI then separates riffs, chord structures, song structures, vocal cadence, words, phrases,
hooks,
all that stuff.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hooks. And then puts it all together, and then some folks in the studio will go in and finish putting it together. Now this is all done for...
It's essentially a kind of a vague memorial to those very famous rock stars of the past who passed away at the age of 23. You got your
More
Jim.
than that, though, it's to call attention to the mental health of the music industry.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, because so many, of past generations,
My God.
really
right?
landmark artists passed away at 23. You got Jim Morrison, you got Jimi Hendrix, you got Janis Joplin, you got Kurt Cobain.
Incredible.
There are so many of them.
There's a list.
Yeah.
So these folks, and I'm looking for their names so that we can do them justice.
I found it on the Wikipedia page.
Yeah, and it's
Over
also
the Bridge. Their name is Over the Bridge.
That's it.
They put together this album of 4 songs. The one that's been, I looked on Spotify this morning. The one that's got the most traction in the press, and consequently has the most views, is Drown Out the Sun, which is a Nirvana-esque song that they put together.
Got my hands right now in everyone. I've been here before, but now
Did the AI put the songs together?
The AI did not put the process reads like this.
Yeah.
They took the AI does a number of things. They input some music. The AI algorithm listens to the isolated hooks, rhythms, melodies, lyrics. Then the AI input is the algorithm learned from the music, then generated a string of all new hooks, rhythms, melodies, and lyrics. And then what they do is they then take it to an audio engineer who took these AI generated elements and composed these songs. And then particularly they've got some sound-alike folks to do the lyrics.
Yeah, and to be clear, the AI isn't generating the music. Well, the AI isn't generating the recording. The AI is getting these disparate elements and hooks and things that we all identify as being iconic from those songs, and then they kick it out to a producer who then goes out and finds a requisite singer and the musicians and builds this. And what Robert and I were talking about is that this is really a Frankenstein approach. And the question that Robert and I both bandied back and forth to each other is, aside from the biggest elephant in the room, is the song any good? And the second question is, does it sound like the target artist? But really what we came down to was, Robert, would you say, in talking about the Nirvana track, would you say it's good?
It comes back to that Frankenstein's monster thing, right? So anybody that's listened to it is going to hear and be able to point to Smells Like Teen Spirit, be able to point to All Apologies, be able to point to In Utero, and You Know You're Right.
All those iconic tracks that you think of when you...
In doing this writing, particularly, it seemed like from what I understand, the Nirvana song posed an extra challenge for the IA because what you tended to get back was a wall of sound.
Right, which that was Nirvana for about half of their tracks.
Yeah, so there's less of a identifiable common thread throughout their songs. So, this this gave you a big chunk of the catalog that the machine could you just couldn't quite learn from.
Mm-hmm. And I think it misses, for me, and here let's play a little bit of this song now. Now, to me, that sounds like Nirvana somewhat.
Ish.
Yeah.
It could be. No, it couldn't be. It couldn't be Nirvana. There's the thing that lacks, and I think I was talking to you, Andy, and telling you this. One of the things that's lacking is there's nobody to get behind the note.
Yeah. And if you're a musician, you understand what getting behind the note means. And for me, it has spirit, but no soul.
That's a good way to put it.
I think it's, and I mean, Robert, I think you'll agree with me here when you say it's an interesting experiment. It's an interesting exercise. Is it ready for prime time? No. Were they doing it to be ready for prime time? That's the question that kind of hangs. That kind of hangs there for me. I mean, I understand their motivations for wanting to do this. We are, especially coming out of the COVID pandemic, we're all more aware of mental health than we have been, but we're still not aware enough about mental health. And the music industry has been so impacted by mental health issues over the years. One of my favorite bands of the last 10 years has been Frightened Rabbit. And Frightened Rabbit, their lead singer, committed suicide a couple of years ago. Everybody saw it coming, and nobody could do anything to stop it. And now that we've gone through this COVID pandemic where live music's been shut down, musicians, some of the biggest musicians in their genres, have been doing concerts from home, hoping people will chime in with PayPal or Venmo donations. I mean, one of my very favorite musicians on earth is James McMurtry. And he's been weekly doing shows with his hand out on PayPal. I've sent him some money because I know that for as lauded as a songwriter as James McMurtry is, his margins are fucking slim. He doesn't make money on recordings. He makes money on touring, and you button up the touring industry. We're talking about multi-billion-dollar a year losses for the industry, but we're talking about the financial livelihood of our favorite musicians.
Yeah, you're cutting the artists off at the knees.
Right there and then. And they don't have any way to go out and, again, the music industry changed right about the millennium, where people getting signed.
Yeah.
Once you got signed, you hadn't made it. Before then, you got signed, they gave you a big advance, and you were off and running. Most touring musicians make money on their concerts and make money on their merchandise. Yeah. And that's it. They don't expect to see money from album sales because album sales aren't a thing anymore. And so, again, for this Over the Bridge project, I laud them for trying to raise awareness somehow because of this.
Well, they've done it, right? Because
we're talking about it. Exactly right.
Yeah. And they've done it. And you have an industry here, while it's a small cut of a world society, you got an industry here where 71% of artists have experienced anxiety. 68% of them experience incidents of depression, and the suicide attempt rate is double that of normal society.
Yeah, and you're right. They did bring it up, and we are talking about it, and we're going to talk about it because all four of us have experienced the same mental health issues in one way or another from the pandemic that y'all have.
I'd like to expand on one point here, and that, I too applaud the awareness building around mental health, but, and thinking about the effects on the music industry of the COVID pandemic and, where money is made and, all of these different things, all the contours of the music industry as an industry. What I actually, as a creator in a different discipline, I find this very troubling because to me, I see it's kind of a Pandora's box that they're playing with opening here. That points to a really grim potential future for artists.
We've been talking about this, but we've been talking about it from a different angle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We have always romanticized this.
Mm-hmm.
Hence the 27 Club.
Yeah.
We've always been talking about this. We just haven't really been talking about this.
No, and I think that's partly because we don't want to. Talking about it for real means addressing it.
Very things that make an artist popular and make this music and this creation, because it comes out of pain and it comes out of hurt.
I'm sorry. I think you guys misunderstood what I was getting at, which is this notion of turning on AI to create art and turning on AI to create culture to the point where it's not inconceivable that there's a future where all of our art and culture is made by machines.
No, and that's
algorithms.
Actually,
that's horrifying.
Yeah, well, I was going there, and we'll loop back around to the mental health discussion. But no, you're right, Chris. But my question is whether or not it is horrible. I don't know that yet, because I'm of the camp that art is what the consumer of art takes away from it.
Yeah, but see, now we're getting into the trouble, I think.
And that's why you're here, boss.
Yeah, so I was actually thinking that the first thing that I thought about with the AI was there's about 10 years ago, a Japanese group substituted one of their members for a CGI.
Yeah, I remember
and here
that.
recently it's aespa, and I'm always going to mispronounce it, but one of the K-pop bands snuck in a CGI, a computer-generated deep fake into their music videos, who established her own fan base and everything before they told them it wasn't real. Yeah. And of course, we're already seeing this as if you think about not just artists, but like the modeling agencies and any of those sort of people, they're already developing
actors.
Actors, they're already developing deep
one
fakes.
Of the things about music and about AI that we haven't been really aware of, because it really hasn't come to town, is the AI, the hologram concerts.
Right?
That happen all up and down the Sunset Strip and in Vegas, right? Yeah. You can go see...
You can see Elvis. Yeah.
You can go see Madonna.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so to Andy's point, it is kind of the consumer, but you know what? There's also a human presence behind that stuff.
So the other one that came back to my mind right away was, now you guys are a little young, but you'll remember this. Back in the ancient days, there was this amazing thing, and it was called the rock and roll music.
Oh,
the rock and roll
I
music.
remember hearing about that.
And the rock and roll music was like the lifeblood of everything.
Yeah.
And then one day this great nothing appeared, this great darkness appeared and overwhelmed the rock and roll music for many years, and it was called the disco. And what I remember most about the disco is, I'm still triggered by this.
I can tell.
Was that it required polyester to be worn.
the amount of dangerously flammable clothing in the period was.
And this is not the kind of polyester that there is now.
No,
this was early invented polyester, which was like wearing garbage bags.
It really was.
Nice.
And it was just, but here's the thing. Here's what happened at some point during the dance music shit took off to such a degree that producers were just bringing in studio musicians creating music, and then after they'd put it together, they'd go find somebody to front it, Vanilli Vanilli, right? They'd just go find some band to front it. So what I want to say here, Ty, is like the AI has already been working, but it hasn't been right?
Right.
Yeah. And it's like they've already been creating music solely for the function of commercial enterprise.
And I actually, I want to, I'd like to sort of, I mean, I'm going to voice a fairly strong disagreement with your point, Andy, backed up in all of this, that what concerns me about that line of thinking is that when you put the definition of art in the hands of art consumers, you commodify art, you turn it into a product. And that, to me, and this is something I take deeply personally, and I'm not saying I'm offended by what you're saying.
I know,
but it's something that I've spent many years exploring and thinking about, and forming some very strong opinions about. That art is a purely human endeavor, and that you create because of an artistic impetus, and whether or not consumers embrace it, demand it, engage it, is secondary. It's not irrelevant. It's secondary to that initial creative impulse. And when you take creation, and to Mark's point about, the rise of disco, and the way that played out in terms of lots of studio musicians and lots of session work, when you take the creative impetus out of the hands of the creators, that's incredibly troubling to me, because to me, as someone who is so passionate about art in all of its forms, we are running the risk of sacrificing one of the things that makes us human.
Okay, so to that, two things. And this...
The hill I'm gonna die on.
If you constantly look at art as being for the artist or for the consumer of art, you failed. Because art is in and of itself an ever-perpetuating dichotomy. You would not have art without those who wanted art. And if there weren't people who wanted art, everybody would paint in their attic and never see the light of day.
I'll agree with you on that. Art is communication.
But here's the other thing. Well, art is art. I like that explanation less than art is expression, because as an artist, and I consider myself an artist as a musician and in a number of other ways, there are things that I do simply for myself. So I'm not communicating to anybody else. I am, however, expressing something. But the other thing about this, when you're talking, and Peterson, I'm going to stand up in defense of disco, God damn it. Because
I've come around here and there.
The disco that we got back in the day was the disco of producers and marketers. No question, okay? But at some point, you have to follow the red thread back and acknowledge the fact that those producers and those marketers were on point. They knew what the trends of the time were. And here's the thing. I dare you to go back and listen to Chic's first album. The musicianship from that band, and from bands like Rufus with Shaka Khan, shut the front door. I mean, but the thing is that there's always a point in any musical trend where it starts to go off the rails. It's gone into a turn too hard, too fast.
Well, I think what we did with disco, particularly, we saw a change in what was going on. So, in the 70s, in the early 70s, and late 60s, you started to have, late 60s particularly, you started to have the machine, as we refer to it.
Exactly.
Start to build, this corporation start to build. So the disco of the late 70s is that machine
coming off the tracks
for air.
Yeah,
right.
I wanted to say,
hey, can we market this? Can we do this? And to
Yeah.
some extent, they were successful. The thing is there was a ghost in the machine somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Well, so I want to just say I'm overstating this just for the purposes of our conversation, because I will tell you one of the weirdest experiences I had. My wife of many years, of course, was a complete ABBA freak, which of course was just how karma works out. And so she dragged me to go see Mamma Mia
Oh,
on stage, not the ridiculous thing. And I got to see
The other ridiculous thing.
Yeah, the movie version. But I got to see a really fantastic touring company do this. And as long as ABBA wasn't singing their materials, the songs are brilliant. And the other thing I finally heard in them was the Northern European and Scandinavian folk song tradition, and that style of music shows up in ABBA. And after I'd seen it performed on stage by other people, it was like, this stuff is actually pretty good, isn't it? It's
Well, something interesting happened.
After the dust settled and enough years went by, revisiting that stuff, you're not caught up in the cocaine-driven,
glammy,
right?
sequency.
I mentioned polyester before.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can actually sift through and look at it. You can kind of go, oh.
I think that's very astute, Robert, because time is the lens in which all of us look back at things that we once scorned and gone, oh hey, because Benny and Bjorn, those guys are songwriting beasts. They are
speaking of
masters.
songwriting beasts, and I just listened to this yesterday. The guitarist for Chic, since you mentioned it,
oh yeah,
I was not aware of what a prolific songwriter
Nile Rodgers is.
I was going to say, look at Nile. I was just about to bring up Nile Rodgers. I mean, his career has been absolutely amazing, and he has been one of the central seminal figures in the evolution of music since disco, and he's the embodiment of what happened since the 70s, where you had that really clearly defined dichotomy of disco versus rock, right? And they found coexistence, and what I think disco accomplished that was very, very positive in the evolution of popular music and American music especially, was it reignited interest in R&B and soul. And
it actually, yeah.
Well,
I think it was. I think it ultimately. I think the case could be made that it ultimately paved the path for the emergence of hip hop and rap,
without question.
One of the things that he actually said in this interview that I was listening to yesterday. It's kind of a weird thing that we're bringing it up. Was they couldn't do what P-Funk was doing. Because Parliament and Pink Funk was doing such a good job. So they had to go somewhere to do it. And where they were going to do it was with the clientele that P-Funk was not engaging, which was the discotheque.
Yep.
Wow, sweet.
Yeah.
Studio 54. I almost said Area 51.
Different segment.
Sort of the
Studio
same.
54, which is not uncommon, unlike totally Area 51.
Now, Studio 54 is a place that was full of aliens.
But that is where Chic started, because that clientele was not going to have anything to do with P-Funk.
Exactly.
Right.
And because P-Funk was scary. P-Funk,
they were scary back then. They were dangerous.
Exactly. And
I was a mad fan. I'll just tell you.
Still am.
But
Brain is one of my favorite.
This whole thing goes back to the the days of, again, if you think that everything is manufactured in that way, you're going to have to write off a whole lot of great music that the Wrecking Crew did.
And, oh my God! Right?
The Wrecking Crew was brilliant. I think that's a whole other. And then
you get into the whole
Shoals. You got Shoals down
Shoals,
on that.
exactly the same
Muscle
thing.
Shoals,
Or the beach sound, the West Coast sound, coming out late '60s, early '70s from the Troubadour. You've got the whole Linda Ronstadt and the Eagles thing, and Jackson Browne, and one of my all-time favorite heroes, Warren Zevon. And that whole incestuous thing where back in the day you needed a label. and this all buttons back around quite nicely to my talk of support your independent creators, because now we're to the point where musicians don't really need labels much anymore. Remember when we were all growing up, there was like 4, 5, 6 labels. That was it. Half of them were owned by Sony. But now you've got a label for pretty much every artist, and you can support those artists directly. You can get the middleman out of there and just support those artists and those musicians that touch you and that help shape your worldview when you were young and are still doing so now.
Yeah, especially now.
Exactly.
And that's where I'll pivot from my cynicism about AI and and turn towards a much more optimistic view of the future of the art world, which is a lot of the gatekeepers have been completely disarmed. I mean, they are still tending to their gates, but the fences have been torn down.
Yeah.
And so taking, and you made a point a little bit ago about, that the producers and the marketers were really successful in marketing disco. Well, yeah, of course that was easy because they were the gatekeepers. And so of course they're going to be successful on telling you when the gate is going to open and when it's going to close. But now that those gatekeepers have been largely disabled and are out of the mix, and boy, are they trying to get back into the mix and stay in the mix. Yeah. But they're just getting steamrolled by the new realities. That is wonderful for artists. It is wonderful for people who appreciate the art, who are seeking things out. It actually, it's one of those places where I'll say technological advancement has actually improved our ability as humans to connect with each other through art.
And you guys all know, I mean, it's like, I think all of us know quite a few musicians now, right? And it's like all of the people that I know are working essentially online through social media, and they'd already started to move that way already.
Hey, MySpace.
No, it ain't MySpace.
It's still there. Did you know MySpace is still there?
I actually, Ty, we were having a discussion while you were suffering all your technical slings and arrows, and we were bringing up MySpace. I got a poster of the Sisters of Mercy from a show I saw about 12 years ago that's got a MySpace address on the bottom of it, and I did try to pull it up before we started recording, and it's, we've changed our terms of service. Click here if you would agree, and that's where I bailed out. But
I have been really happy to find that it's like, because I'm in the ukulele cult, of course, and most of all the best people who are really proficient musicians in the ukulele universe, they all have really good and well-staffed Patreon sites.
Exactly. And by the way, if you want to help us out, you can support us through Patreon. But the only thing that I want to close with, aside from the fact that we'll put links in the description below about some mental health resources that we all support, but just to remember that in every period of bad music, good things come out of it. And I will give you one example, and that is one of my all-time favorite guitar solos is in Running with the Night by Lionel Richie. Hello, was it me that you're looking for? Because that guitar solo, that incredible guitar solo, was played by Steve Lukather. And I mean, you got to remember, Eddie Van Halen played guitar on some things that people don't recognize were him, including Michael Jackson. There's always good. I always have a problem. I consider myself a student of music in pretty much all its forms, including Peterson always criticized me for liking electronic music, saying it was Android music.
From Jupiter.
Well, actually further out than that. Trust me. But I always have a problem with people criticizing a particular genre of music and saying that's garbage. You know what?
Dismissing it.
If it moves you, if it makes you feel something, if it engenders in you some kind of positivity, music's doing its job. And just like what you like.
And if it's not your thing, move on.
Exactly.
I gotta say, one of my heroes, Jimmy Page, does it really, really well. And he says this: if I can't say something good, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, there you go. And that's advice for life.
If the band is not something that he jibes with, He just doesn't want to talk about them.
Yeah, exactly. And with that, we are going to take another quick break. We will be right back on the Narrowband Broadcast Network. I'm Andrew Scott, along with Dr. Mark C.E. Peterson and Chris Vicano and my other good friend, Robert Anthony. We'll be right back. This is Keep Your Hat On. Don't go nowhere. And we're back on Keep... You coughed right when I was talking. 3, 2, 1. And we're back on Keep Your Hat On, the show where, hell, even we don't know where we're going to go. I'm Andrew Scott, along with Dr. Mark C.E. Peterson out in Wisconsin. Robert Anthony over by Fubon Asian grocery store. And Chris about 7 blocks away from me. And Chris, I hear that you've got...
My new favorite thing in the world.
A new favorite thing in the world. What's going on?
I do. And this is really, really cool. I'm really excited to share this and talk about it.
We'll be the judge of that.
Fair enough. But mark my words, it's really cool. So a few weeks ago, I saw an article in the Washington Post about this young lady who has essentially made a career out of domino drops, you know, where you set up large, complicated domino art patterns. And actually, it's more correctly referred to as domino art. And, you know, they do the drops and they film them. And, you know, this is a thing. I'm sure most people have come across it once or twice. But her story is amazing. Her name is Lily Hevesh. And she publishes on YouTube under the name Hevesh 5, which is, the 5 comes from the fact that she's the 5th member of her family. And that's how she came up with that name.
Fair enough.
She got her first set of dominoes when she was about 10 years old. And she started, you know, she would just set up all these interesting, intricate domino, you know, cascade drops using that set of dominoes, and just found her passion in it. At about the age of 15, she set up a YouTube channel and started publishing domino videos anonymously under the name Hevesh 5. But never exposed who the person was behind Hevesh 5 until a couple of years later. And you know, she just sort of kept publishing these videos. She got into competitive dominoes, domino art, where and this is actually a thing. I mean, there are challenges, there are competitions.
Oh yeah, and just for our listeners only on the audio side of our podcast, you need to understand something. When we think of domino drops and dominoes falling, we think of these, you know, large elaborate patterns that we've seen done in gymnasiums and things like that, of dominoes all lined up on their edges. But Lily does something so dramatically different. It transcends that and goes to the I didn't know you could do that with those things school.
Right.
Where she's got dominoes stacked on top of dominoes, with dominoes trestling over to other dominoes. I get nervous as a klutzy disabled person. I get nervous just looking at pictures of this setup for fear that if I jostle my desk too much, the whole thing's going to
knock
go
it
over.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine the patience and the time, and
I can't even imagine the patience.
Well, just not only the setup.
And before you do the setup, you have to design it.
Yeah. How is she designing this?
I'm
does
guessing.
she have the engineer degree?
No,
or
I'm guessing that she's probably using CAD. some layout
well,
software.
let me get back to her story, because her
Chris
story
is going to know, not
as,
me. So sorry.
every bit as fascinating as what she does.
Chris, would you just get back to her story?
Chris,
Yes,
Chris, get back to her story, though.
I'm so sorry I took us on this tangent.
Would you get back to the story, please?
Damn it, you did it again.
Whoops, I did it. Nah, never mind.
You remember what happened the last time you
Yes.
sang on an
Hey,
episode?
I know.
Free
I know.
Britney.
Yep.
Go on.
Yep. All right.
Go on.
So,
Hashtag free Britney.
all right. Focus, boys.
Wrong crowd.
We don't know where we'll end up.
She got to about 19, and
How old is she now? Do you have any idea?
she's 22 now.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So she got to 19, and it was time for her to head off to college. She went and enrolled at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. So
course.
this girl is, smart as a whip too. I mean, obviously, and she got in, and she was. I forget exactly what her degree was, but it's in a STEM field and had a connection to culture. She realized the domino thing was just taking off for her massively.
As is so often the case with these types of people, they start doing something kind of as a lark and put it on YouTube, and then the next thing you know, it has taken over their lives.
Yeah.
And this did. She had to make a really tough choice. So she dropped out of school and dedicated herself to becoming a full-time domino art professional. And as far as so no engineering degree, no good education background, but she stopped because she found her thing and she's following her passion, and that's what's so cool about this. But there's some other pieces about this that make her story so remarkable. Within the domino art community, she is one of the very few women who actually compete in dominoes, and she's a regular winner in her competitions. Not only that, she holds the Guinness World's Record for largest circular domino drop with 250,000 dominoes. She has a YouTube award. She's on the 2020 Forbes 30 Under 30.
Yeah.
She's done domino drops on the Today Show, on the Tonight Show.
Well, and she's worked with Google, Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Ford, Johnson & Johnson, Marriott.
She does professional domino drops for these big companies.
Ooh,
Absolutely.
Who pays for the crew?
Well, I'm sure that
setup
She's got a whole team that she works with.
Yeah, I mean,
and they're all
you're talking
passionate domino
her
aficionados
YouTube
too.
channel. Her YouTube channel has 3 million followers, and
1 billion views.
Yeah, exactly, over 1 billion views on a number of her videos. I'm happy to hear that somebody like that has got Patreon support and people that are helping fund these things, because you want to we're going back to our discussion of what is art before. This
I was just going to say, I hope the AI doesn't get involved.
Right, exactly.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
But it's just such a great story that it's just one of those things where it's something that puts joy in people's lives, seeing the process of it. And that's one of the things that I love most about the creators that I follow, is not only are they showing you the result of what they were doing, but they also let you into the process. Because for me, I'm a process guy. I like knowing how the sausage is made. As a matter of fact, that was my very first job as a kid, was 7 years old, cleaning out blood trays at a butcher across the street from me. But I really enjoy knowing the process, because for me, the process is also art. And getting to go along on that ride with a creator or an artist, I can watch. That's one of the reasons why I spend a lot of my evening hours watching guys turning knotted up burled wood into amazing, on a lathe, and watching that process happen.
And this is the cherry on top of her story. Her wonderful, delicious ice cream sundae of a story is that, to your point about bringing people into the process, she just did a deal with a toy company and has released a starter domino set with specially designed dominoes.
Yeah, because her dominoes, again, to be clear to the people listening, her dominoes aren't classical dominoes. They're not what you think of when you think of domino.
Wait. They don't have the bead in the middle of them?
No.
They don't have the bead. They don't have the dots.
They've got no pips.
So they're just pieces of plastic that look like dominoes
blocks.
for art.
And they're rounded in a certain way so that they drop better.
And now they're weighted and everything else. Yeah.
They're sport dominoes.
Well, yeah, I tend to refer to them as high performance dominoes.
Yeah, they're pro dominoes. Yeah.
Oh, so we would not see those,
So she's done this toy deal to inspire kids, and give them an opportunity to find joy in something that she finds joy in, and
to share in that creative process.
Absolutely, and to open it up to anybody who wants to participate,
And
rather
make
than
a little bit of
rather
money.
than doing this is my thing.
Exactly. And that goes back to the discussion, Chris, that we were having before about, a painter in his attic painting only for himself is expression, or herself is expression, and it's also art. But anytime you get to share the experience with somebody, no matter what it is, to me, okay, Peterson's gonna pat me on the back for this or slap me in the head, one of the two, haven't decided yet. There's an arete to that. Do I get points? Do I get points? Teach? Do I get points? And that's one of my very
Greek word.
Arete.
It is a Greek word, and is one of my very favorite Greek words. And that's one of the things that Peterson and I bonded on back in the day when I was first in his class, because I was the only one in class who knew what that word meant before we went into that discussion.
Of course he did.
Well, hey, thank the Jesuits.
Yeah.
But arete is the excellence in doing a thing. And it transcends just merely that as well, because somebody can be technically proficient at something to the point where they do it and it's perfect, but there's also a spirit implied and a spiritus that's implied with that word, and that's exactly what she does.
Yeah.
Look, knocking down dominoes is just physics. It's just physics. It is cause and effect and a chain of events, and it's predictable and it's measurable and all that. But what she does is brings a whole different spirit to it, which is why her dominoes look different. Why? We're not playing dominoes. We're not slapping things down on a table and taking drags of your opponent's cigarette as a way to rub their nose in it. Right. This is about something bigger and greater than just that. And the joy that you see, and we'll put links to her videos down below, the joy that you see in her, not only the joy that you see when the thing deploys successfully, but the joy in her doing it. And at the same time, she shares frustrations and all that business as well, because I mean, it's dominoes. There's going to be frustrations. There's going to be There's going to be the errant cat walking into something at some point in life. Yeah. By the way, Mark, where's the cat? Come on. That was a cue exit stage left.
Yeah, Boomer is right here. Actually, the dog right now is looking at me like he needs something.
Come on, Dad. Well, look, again, we are going to put this down. Wrap this up for us, Chris.
Yeah, I'd like to close out and just say that she's not content where she's at. She's looking towards the future.
No, she's going to find a way to make this ambition. She's going to find a way to make this bigger. I have confidence in this woman's ability to blow dominoes up on a global scale.
Huge. But she's literally.
I was just going to say, now that I've said that, I kind of question whether or not I should have used that as a
weird, but
metaphor.
okay.
She's set her next target. It's a very ambitious goal, which is to get another Guinness World Record for largest domino drop ever, which is going to involve 5 million dominoes.
Jeez.
A large crew of people working for 3 months to set it up. And all I can say is, you go, girl. You do it.
In a non-earthquake zone.
I was just going to say in the middle of, where would that be? Somewhere like Kazakhstan's riddled with earthquakes.
I think they got him there. Yeah, I don't know.
Anyways, We will put links down and below. But until next time, everybody, this has been Keep Your Hat On. I'm Andrew Scott, along with Chris Vicano, Robert Anthony, and Dr. Mark C.E. Peterson. And thanks for joining us. Thanks for hanging out. Remember, please, to like, click, subscribe. If you'd like to support us on Patreon, we'll be more than willing to take that support. But until next time, everybody, remember, keep your hat on. As we just proved, we may end up miles from here. Take care, everybody. Wear your mask, get your shot, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Well, there's a chunk of time you can't get back. From Portland, Oregon, this has been Keep Your Hat On, a big little show about a whole lot of nothing in particular. Keep Your Hat On is a narrowband broadcast network production in association with PodSquadPDX.com. Andrew Scott, executive producer. Robert Anthony and Chris Vicano, associate producers. Our theme music was written and produced by Andrew Scott, along with help from Ron Kajawa. Website design and maintenance by Vicano Creative, Chris Vicano Webmaster, available at VicanoCreative.com. Audio and video production by Andrew Scott, available at AndrewScottMedia.com. Got ideas or comments for the show? Email us at talkback@kyhopodcast.com, and don't forget to like, click, and subscribe. On behalf of the boys, I'm your announcer, Michael Brumage. Thanks for listening. I guess.
3 million fucking dominoes. Holy cow.
You know, I would
seriously,
like to know,
it makes me nervous.
million.
It makes me
Andy,
nervous
Andy, stop,
thinking
stop,
about
stop,
it.
stop.
NBBN.
The Narrowband Broadcast Network.
The focus is on you.